Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to Boring History for Sleep, where we dive deep into the quiet currents of the past, letting the vast expanse of human history gently wash over us. Tonight we're embarking on a truly epic journey, one that spans 250,000 years, tracing the elusive footprints of our own species. We'll explore the profound mystery of why for so long anatomically modern humans with bodies and brains just like yours and mine lived lives that seemed strangely devoid of art myth or explicit symbolic meaning. It's a journey into what we call the time hole, a perplexing paradox where our physical form arrived first and the symbolic mind would only later catch fire. If this calm exploration resonates with you, a quiet subscribe and a thoughtful like are always appreciated, and feel free to share a soft hello in the comments below, letting us know where you're drifting from tonight. Allow your mind to softly drift as we journey back to the profound and often haunting silence of early Homo sapiens' symbolic world, its subtle stirrings, and the eventual dramatic explosion of meaning that defines our species. You might think that if you stood face to face with an early Homo sapiens from say 300,000 years ago, you'd immediately recognize them, and in many ways you would. Imagine a person standing before you. Their build might be a little more robust, their brow ridge perhaps a touch more pronounced than what you're accustomed to, but their face, that flat, distinctly modern face with tucked-in cheekbones and a rounded jawline, would feel eerily familiar. This is what you see in the fossil record from Jebel Irhoud, Morocco, dating back an astonishing 315,000 years. It's a face that even then carried the undeniable blueprint of humanity, long before the fully globular braincase shape we associate with modern humans had fully developed. It's like looking at an early draft of a masterpiece where the core genius is already evident even if some details are still being refined. Yet this isn't a simple linear story of evolution, where one feature neatly follows another. No, if you travel to Florisbad, South Africa about 260,000 years ago, you'd encounter another individual. They too would have a flat face and a large brain case, but perhaps some archaic features would linger, a subtle mosaic of old and new. Then if you journeyed further to Herto, Ethiopia around 160,000 years ago, you might be struck by even more robust older traits mixed with the familiar. It's a puzzle, isn't it? These findings challenge any neat, tidy narrative of our species' emergence, showing you a dynamic, ever-changing picture, rather than a straight line. It's less like a single path, and more like a braided river, with different currents merging and diverging over vast stretches of time. It's only when you arrive at sites like Homo Kibish in Ethiopia, with fossils dating back to about 205,000 to 195,000 years ago, that you unequivocally see a fully modern Homo sapiens. You'd observe that high forehead, that distinct chin, and that perfectly rounded braincase features that taken together would make you feel as if you were looking at someone who could walk right into your world today and blend in perhaps after a quick shower and a change of clothes, of course. This person in their very anatomy is undeniably one of us. And what about their daily lives, their ingenuity? The Jebel Irhoud people, for instance, weren't simply wandering aimlessly. They were craftsmen creating remarkably advanced tools for their era. You'd watch them as they meticulously fashioned prepared core tools, sharpened pointed spear tips, and expertly crafted scrapers and blades using a technique known as leveloir technology. This wasn't just brute force. It was applied engineering requiring sophisticated foresight and a deep understanding of stone. You'd realise they weren't just surviving. They were strategizing, planning and executing with a level of skill that would impress even modern artisans. Their hands, just like yours, were capable of incredible precision and innovation, laying a quiet foundation for the complex world that would eventually emerge. Beyond their impressive stone tools, you'd quickly discover that early Homo sapiens had mastered a technology so fundamental, yet so powerful, that it utterly reshaped their world fire. But this wasn't just about keeping warm or cooking a meal. While those uses were certainly vital, you'd observe something far more sophisticated at play. This was the controlled use of heat, as a transformative force, an applied science that hints at a level of intellectual curiosity and experimental thinking you might not expect. Imagine for a moment standing at Pinnacle Point, a breathtaking coastal site in South Africa, around 164,000 years ago. Here you'd witness individuals not just using fire, but engineering with it. They weren't merely warming stones by a campfire. They were deliberately heat-treating silkcrete, a type of stone, to make it more workable, sharper and more precise for tool-making. This wasn't a casual discovery. It was a process requiring careful observation, an understanding of temperature, and the ability to control the conditions of the fire. You'd see them selecting specific stones, building a particular kind of fire, waiting for the precise moment to place the silkcrete in, and knowing exactly when to remove it. It's a bit like a primitive form of metallurgy, only with rock. The subtle nuances of this technique too hot and the stone shatters. Not hot enough and it doesn't improve had to be meticulously taught and transmitted across generations. Think about the sheer effort involved in passing down such delicate, empirically derived knowledge without a single textbook or YouTube tutorial. You learn quickly that memory observation and dedicated apprenticeship were their entire educational system. It makes you wonder how many times they burned their fingers or shattered a perfectly good piece of silkcrete before perfecting the technique. This mastery of fire, this quiet experiment in applied science, points to a broader truth about our origins. You see, the story of Homo sapiens isn't a neat singular line emerging from one spot, but rather what scientists refer to as a weakly structured stem model. Imagine a vast, intricate network of interconnected populations spread across the African continent. You aren't just one isolated tribe. You're part of a grand, shifting tapestry. Your lineage isn't a single unbroken thread, but a complex ancestral braid, constantly splitting and fusing with others over hundreds of thousands of years. As you wander through this ancient landscape, you'd find different groups, perhaps speaking slightly different dialects of an early language, but consistently exchanging genes and crucially exchanging survival strategies. One group might have developed a more efficient way to hunt gazelle, another a novel method for finding water in a parched landscape. When populations interacted, these innovations weren't just shared. They were often adapted, improved, and then passed on. You might meet individuals with slightly different physical traits carrying the genetic echoes of populations from thousands of miles away, a testament to the continent-spanning migrations and intermingling that formed the very fabric of early humanity. This continuous ebb and flow, this dynamic exchange of biological and cultural information, meant that our species didn't just appear in one perfect cradle, but rather coalesced across an entire continent, a grand slow-motion experiment in collective evolution. It's a reminder that even in deep time, humanity was never truly isolated, always connected by invisible threads of kinship and shared knowledge. As you live through these ancient times, you quickly come to understand that the Earth itself is a capricious, often terrifying force. Forget the stable climates you're used to. The Pleistocene Ice Age was a period of continuous glacial pulses, a relentless geological drama playing out on a grand scale. You'd witness sea levels fluctuating by as much as 130 metres, not just once, but repeatedly. Imagine standing on a coastline that suddenly stretches miles further into the distance, only to see it slowly, inexorably retreat again over generations. These massive shifts didn't just redraw coastlines, they profoundly impacted rainfall patterns and ecosystems across the entire African continent, even in areas untouched by direct glaciation. Your very landscape, your sources of water, your hunting grounds could be transformed within a lifetime, forcing you to constantly adapt or perish. Then there were the African mega-droughts events, so severe they would make any modern drought seem like a minor inconvenience. Evidence from ancient lake beds like those of Lake Malawi tells a stark story between 135,000 and 70,000 years ago. This massive lake, a lifeblood for countless species, nearly dried up multiple times. This wasn't just a period of low rainfall. It was the weakening or total collapse of the African monsoon, creating apocalyptic centuries of hyper-arid desert. You'd see verdant landscapes turn to dust, rivers become dry beds, and the very air crackle with a desperate thirst. These were not mere bad years. These were generations living on the brink, witnessing their world shrivel and die around them. The struggle for water, the search for any remaining oasis, would become the dominant, agonizing reality of your daily existence. The Sahara, too, was a restless, shape-shifting giant. You'd hear stories perhaps passed down through generations of a time when the desert was a lush green corridor, teeming with life, allowing for migrations and connections across vast distances. But then, as abruptly as a seasonal storm, it would revert to a landscape of sand and death, an impassable barrier. This pulsing transformation, green to barren, then back again, constantly forced populations to migrate to find new pathways, or to face the devastating consequences of isolation and cultural collapse. You'd learn that even the very earth beneath your feet was never truly permanent, always subject to the whims of deep time and climatic shifts, and then a cataclysm unlike any other. Around 74,000 years ago, an event occurred that would plunge your world into a chilling darkness. The Toba supervolcano erupted in Sumatra. Imagine the sky not just overcast but utterly blocked, as over 2,800 cubic kilometers of ash, an unimaginable quantity, billowed into the atmosphere. You wouldn't see the sun for months, perhaps years. Global temperatures would plummet by 3-5 degrees, ushering in what felt like a volcanic ice age. The world would become a dim, frozen and deeply unsettling place. In the wake of such a colossal catastrophe as the Toba eruption, you'd become acutely aware of humanity's precarious position. The impact wasn't just on the landscape and the animals, it was on you, on your family, on your entire species. Scientific studies of mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome lineages, those tiny genetic markers passed down through generations, reveal a stark and sobering truth. Humanity went through major population crashes during these brutal periods. You might look around your small band of survivors, perhaps just a few dozen faces, and realize that you are part of an incredibly small remnant. Geneticists estimate that the global Homo sapiens population may have dwindled to fewer than 10,000, or even a staggering 2,000, 3,000 breeding individuals. Imagine that your entire species reduced to a handful of scattered groups, pushed to the very edge of oblivion. It's a terrifying thought, a reminder of how close we came to never making it. You'd feel the weight of every birth, every death, with an intensity that modern society can scarcely comprehend, knowing that the survival of your kind rested on so few. In such small, scattered populations, knowledge you quickly learn is a fragile thing. Consider an innovative hunting technique your uncle perfected, or a complex story that encodes vital information about distant waterholes. If your group is small and isolated, and your uncle, the master storyteller or hunter, dies unexpectedly, that knowledge can simply vanish within a single generation. This is what anthropologists call cultural drift, the pervasive random loss of information, new techniques or rituals. Forgetting often outpaced innovation, creating a patchy, almost ghost-like archaeological record. You'd see flashes of brilliance like those heat-treated silkrete tools appear, then fade away only to be rediscovered or perhaps lost forever by another group at another time. It's like trying to maintain a complex network of computers with only a few users, where a single power outage could wipe out crucial data for good. This struggle highlights a critical hypothesis, the demographic ratchet theory. It suggests that cultural innovation, especially symbolic culture, the very things that make us uniquely human-like art or myth, only emerges and persists when populations are large enough to reliably maintain and transmit it across generations. If you don't have enough people, enough minds, enough mouths to tell the stories, then even the most brilliant discoveries can simply die out. You'd feel the constant pressure to remember to teach, to ensure that the vital knowledge your ancestors painstakingly accumulated wasn't lost to the sands of time or the cold silence of a forgotten camp. Interestingly, some theories suggest a paradox about environmental pressure. You might think that stable, easy climates would foster innovation, but in reality they might offer little selective pressure. If life is comfortable and resources are abundant, why innovate? But harsh, fluctuating climates like those you're experiencing now might actually trigger innovation. When every day is a test, when memory and adaptability are crucial for finding food or water, these challenges become a powerful selective force. The ability to remember complex environmental rules to adapt to new foraging strategies becomes a matter of life and death. You'd find yourself constantly observing, learning and sharing, because the cost of not doing so is simply too high. In this relentless crucible of climate chaos, certain locations become vital lifeboats. Imagine narrow strips of coastline like Pinnacle Point in South Africa, a place you've heard whispers of where the ocean's bounty offers consistent marine resources. These coastal refuges provide vital resilience against brutal inland droughts, supporting concentrated, albeit still fragile populations. Here the rhythmic sound of waves and the salty air become a comforting constant in an otherwise unpredictable world, allowing groups to huddle together to survive and to pass on their knowledge. It's a testament to humanity's incredible adaptability, where the very definition of home was something that could evaporate within a lifetime, forcing you to find solace and sustenance in the most improbable places. But while you and your ancestors navigated these vast environmental shifts, you also have to contend with a profound sense of loss, a drowned library of human history. Picture the vast coastal lands like the Sunda Shelf in Southeast Asia, or Doggerland in what is now the North Sea that existed during periods of lower sea levels. These were not just empty stretches of land, they were vibrant landscapes where early human populations almost certainly lived, hunted and developed their own unique cultures. As the ice ages ended and sea levels rose, these lands potentially hiding entire crucial chapters of human history and early cultural development were submerged beneath the waves. Forever lost, you might walk along a modern beach and wonder what incredible stories lie beneath the shimmering surface, what innovations, what triumphs, what heartbreaks are now silent, entombed by the ocean. It's a haunting thought, a reminder that much of our past will forever remain a mystery, whispered only by the shifting sands and the deep, dark currents. Despite these immense environmental and demographic pressures, the daily lives of early Homo sapiens reveal a species already demonstrating remarkable ingenuity and a sophisticated understanding of their world. Before the dramatic explosion of overt symbolic culture, you were already exhibiting an intelligence that would set the stage for everything to come. It wasn't a static existence. It was one characterized by constant innovation within the confines of raw survival. Consider your basic living conditions. You weren't building sprawling cities, obviously. Your shelters were likely temporarily crafted from perishable materials like wood branches and animal skins, built with an acute awareness of the elements. You'd learn to read the wind, the rain, the sun, constructing a dwelling that offered protection from the biting cold of night or the scorching heat of day. It might be a simple lean-to, a windbreak, or a more elaborate structure built around a central hearth, but its construction demanded skill and knowledge of your immediate environment. You would constantly be evaluating materials, understanding their properties, and using them to create a functional, if impermanent, home. Yet basic doesn't mean devoid of comfort or foresight. Imagine settling down for the night at Blombos Cave, another significant site around 200,000 years ago. Here you'd find evidence of deliberate comfort engineering. You weren't just sleeping on the bare earth. your ancestors, and now you carefully selected and laid down plant bedding. These weren't just any leaves. They were aromatic leaves, perhaps from the Tarchonanthus plant chosen specifically for their insect-repellent properties. You can almost feel the springiness of the bed smell, the distinctive earthy, slightly pungent scent of the crushed leaves offering a modicum of relief from the incessant buzz of mosquitoes and other pests. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about an early form of domestic comfort, a keen sensory understanding of plants and a proactive approach to health. You recognise that even in this harsh world, the desire for a good night's sleep, for a moment of peace, free from biting insects, was a universal human experience. This awareness, this attention to the subtle properties of the natural world, was a testament to your quiet, everyday intelligence. Your life in these ancient settings is a constant dance with the landscape. You learn that settlements are often ephemeral, moved with the shifting seasons, the migrations of game, or the dictates of a changing climate. There are minimal archaeological traces of long-term habitation, not because your ancestors were careless, but because their priority was mobility over rootedness. A campsite might be occupied for a few weeks or months, leaving behind some discarded tools, a hearth, and perhaps some animal bones before the group moves on. The earth reclaims these sites quickly, covering them with dust leaves and the relentless march of geological time. You understand that leaving little behind is a survival strategy, a way of minimizing your footprint and remaining agile in a world that offers no guarantees. It's a nomadic or semi-nomadic lifestyle, for much of this period prioritizing the freedom to follow resources over the stability of a permanent home. However, certain locations offer more stability. You and others often hug the coastlines, finding not just refuge in caves and cliffs, but also a predictable bounty from the sea. Imagine the sheer relief of having consistent marine resources, shellfish, fish, seaweed, when inland droughts turn the interior into a desolate wasteland. These coastal refuges, often lulled by the rhythmic sound of waves and the salty air, offer a measure of calm amidst the environmental chaos. Here you might occupy a cave for a longer period, perhaps even decorating its walls with the occasional simple marking, though not yet the complex art that would define later eras. The ocean, with its predictable tides and endless generosity, becomes a powerful ally, a source of stability in an otherwise unstable world. Despite the lack of permanent architectural feats, you're far from passive observers in your environment. Your diet is a testament to your resourcefulness. You're a hunter-gatherer, yes, but that term barely scratches the surface of your diverse foraging strategies. You hunt large game animals, gazelle, zebra, rhinoceros, with a skill and coordination that would impress any modern hunter. But your diet is far more varied than just meat. You systematically harvest shellfish from the intertidal zones, carefully observing the moon cycles and tides, knowing precisely when and where to find the plumpest mussels and oysters. You gather resources from tidal pools, collecting seaweed, and painstakingly dig for pine nuts and tubers hidden beneath the earth. Your knowledge of edible plants, their seasonal availability and their preparation is encyclopedic, passed down through generations of careful observation and experimentation. At coastal sites like Pinnacle Point, you see the evidence of systematic exploitation of marine life. This isn't just opportunistic scavenging, it's a form of proto-science. You need precise knowledge of tide seasons and ecological patterns to sustain this kind of harvesting. You learn to read the ocean's language, to predict its rhythms, to understand its generosity and its dangers. It reflects a profound sensory engagement with the rhythm of the ocean, the smell of the salt on the air, the feel of the wet sand between your toes, the sound of the waves breaking on the shore, each a clue to where the next meal might be found. You're not just living in nature, you're intimately attuned to it, a part of its complex web. Coordinated trap hunting is another hallmark of your ingenuity. You, along with your group, devise sophisticated plans to drive animals into natural bottlenecks or over cliffs. This requires intricate communication, a shared understanding of animal behavior, and the foresight to anticipate their movements. It's a complex ballet of human and animal where every participant knows their role, every sound and gesture is precisely timed. This is not just a hunt, it's a testament to your collective intelligence, your ability to plan, cooperate and execute complex strategies for survival. You quickly discover that water, that most fundamental of resources, is often the ultimate limiting factor in your ancient world. While rivers and springs offer obvious sources, their reliability can be fickle, especially during the relentless droughts. This makes seemingly trivial technology at border cave fragments of ostrich eggshells used as water containers nothing short of revolutionary. Imagine the ingenuity carefully hollowing out an ostrich egg, painstakingly cleaning it, and then sealing it to carry precious water across vast dry landscapes. This simple innovation unchains you from immediate proximity to water sources enabling wider migrations and settlement patterns. You can now venture further, explore new territories, and survive in environments previously inaccessible. The weight of that filled eggshell in your hand isn't just water, it's freedom, it's possibility. It's the quiet hum of survival echoing across the arid plains. Beyond hunting and gathering, you are also adept at food preservation, a skill absolutely crucial for periods of scarcity. While direct archaeological evidence can be elusive for such ancient times, you can infer techniques for preserving meat, perhaps through smoking it over fires or drying it in the sun and wind. You also possess extensive knowledge of medicinal plants, understanding which roots and leaves can soothe an ailment, heal a wound or alleviate pain. This isn't just folk wisdom, it's a living pharmacy constantly observed and passed down, vital for maintaining health and survival in environments where disease and injury are ever-present threats. You recognize the bitter taste of a fever-reducing herb or the soothing texture of a poultice, knowing that these natural remedies are your only defense against the unpredictable ravages of illness. Your diet and your ancestors before you undergoes a significant adaptive revolution. You move beyond purely terrestrial hunting to multi-ecosystem exploitation, embracing marine resources with a profound understanding. This broadens your ecological niche, making you far more resilient than species limited to a single environment. From the plains to the coasts, from the forests to the deserts, you learn to extract sustenance from virtually any landscape. This versatility is a defining characteristic of Homo sapiens, allowing you to survive where other hominin species might falter. You become in essence a universal adapter capable of reading and leveraging the unique opportunities of every environment you encounter. Now let's talk about hygiene and personal care, a topic often romanticized or ignored in ancient history. You'd quickly realize that hygiene as you understand it today simply doesn't exist. Your cleanliness is rudimentary, driven by practicality. You rely on natural water sources for washing, emphasizing practical cleanliness for health rather than aesthetic ideals. A quick dip in a river, a splash from a spring, these are your daily rituals focused on removing grime and preventing infection. There's no soap, no perfumed oils, no carefully curated routines. You're not clean in the modern sense, but you're clean enough to reduce the risk of illness, and that's what truly matters. Interestingly, ochre, that vibrant red pigment so often found at archaeological sites, has a far more utilitarian role in your early life than mere adornment. While later, it becomes a symbol, for now you might use it as an insect repellent, smearing its earthy paste on your skin to ward off biting flies. It can also function as a skin conditioner, protecting against the sun's harsh rays, or the drying wind, or even as an antibacterial agent for minor wounds. You can almost smell the mineral-rich earthiness of it on your skin, a distinct reassuring scent that speaks of practical protection. This reflects early practical applications of natural pigments, where beauty was a secondary concern to survival. While the earliest periods of Homo sapiens don't show explicit evidence of adornment, the very presence and functional use of ochre hinting at its eventual shift towards body painting suggests a gradual evolution towards personal grooming for identity, you begin to see the subtle beginnings of self-expression, where the practical application of a pigment slowly morphs into something more. It's a contrast to the purely functional use, a quiet precursor to a time when a carefully placed line of ochre or a strung bead would signal something profound about who you are, your status, or your group affiliation. For now you might still apply it for utility, but perhaps, just perhaps, you're starting to notice how it looks, how it distinguishes you. Your daily labour is relentless, but deeply purposeful, demanding a wide array of skilled tasks from everyone in your group. You're a master toolmaker producing prepared core tools, hafted spears, scrapers and blades with remarkable precision and efficiency. Imagine the hours spent knapping stone, feeling the subtle vibrations through your hands, guiding the flake with surgical accuracy. This isn't just a craft, it's a deep understanding of lithic physics, of how force and material interact. You're constantly refining your technique, sharing tips and observing others, because a well-made tool can mean the difference between a successful hunt and a hungry night. Beyond stone, you delve into a form of material science that would astound a modern chemist. Think about the creation of compound adhesives, the very first glues. At sites like Symbolic Cave, evidence suggests you are combining red ochre with plant resin to create a strong, durable adhesive. This wasn't a random mix. This required laboratory-level thinking in a Paleolithic context. You needed precise control of fire to heat the resin, an understanding of humidity and exact ratios of ingredients to create a sticky, effective bond. You'd learn through trial and error, through countless failures, how to get the consistency just right, how to ensure it would hold a spearhead firmly to its shaft. It's a testament to your quiet, empirical brilliance, pushing the boundaries of what was possible with the raw materials of your world. Cooperative hunting is a cornerstone of your survival. You, alongside your fellow hunters, engage in coordinated group hunts using advanced weapons. This isn't a solitary endeavour. It requires intricate communication, strategic planning, and a shared understanding of animal behaviour. You learn to move as one, anticipating the movements of the herd, using subtle signals and calls to direct the hunt. The success of the group hinges on the collective skill and cooperation of its members. You feel the adrenaline, the tension, the quiet thrill of working together to bring down a large game animal, knowing that your shared meal is a direct result of your collective effort. Resource management especially. The sustainable exploitation of shellfish demands keen observation of ecological patterns. You aren't just taking what you can, you're managing the resource, ensuring its long-term viability. You learn the rhythms of the tides, the growth cycles of the mussels, the delicate balance of the marine ecosystem. And crucially, this knowledge, these complex procedures, are transmitted across generations. You teach your children not just how to gather, but when and where, how much to take, and how to ensure there will be enough for future seasons. It's a silent, profound commitment to stewardship, ensuring the continuity of your food source. While explicit details of gendered labour are often inferred rather than directly observed in such ancient records, it's understood that responsibilities were broadly divided. You, whether male or female, would have distinct, equally demanding forms of labour within the group. Every individual's contribution was essential for collective survival. There's no room for idleness. Everyone pulls their weight, contributing their unique skills and strengths to the collective good. It's a finely tuned social machine where each part is vital, and the rhythm of daily life is dictated by the relentless demands of the natural world. The education you receive in this ancient world is profoundly different from anything you know today, yet it is no less rigorous or essential. There are no schools, no classrooms, no formal curricula. Instead, you learn through apprenticeship and relentless observation. Imagine yourself as a child watching your elders with rapt attention. You'd observe a master toolmaker patiently chipping away at a piece of flint, your eyes following every subtle movement of their hands, every angle of the strike. You'd see them heat-treating stone, learning by diligent testing and patient repetition, understanding not just the what but the why of each action, identifying edible plants, tracking animals across a seemingly featureless landscape, understanding the migratory patterns of birds. All these critical skills are absorbed through constant exposure and direct teaching, often without a single word being spoken. It's a holistic education deeply embedded in the rhythm of daily life. This intergenerational transmission of knowledge is not merely important, it is critically necessary. Think about the complex procedures required for advanced technologies, like pressure flaking, a technique for refining stone tools with incredible precision, or the creation of composite tools combining different materials to achieve a specific function. These aren't intuitive skills. They require meticulous instruction, patient guidance, and repeated practice. Your elders, your mentors, are living encyclopedias, their memories holding the accumulated wisdom of countless generations. You learn to listen, to mimic, to practice, until the movements become second nature, until the knowledge becomes an extension of your own hands and mind. It's a profound exchange linking the living to the dead through the unbroken chain of shared expertise. Yet this knowledge, for all its critical importance, is incredibly fragile, especially in small populations. Imagine the heartbreaking possibility the loss of a key elder, a master toolmaker, or the keeper of vital ecological law could mean the potential disappearance of that knowledge within a single generation. If there's no one else to remember the precise steps for making the strongest glue or the intricate details of a specific seasonal migration, that entire body of understanding could be extinguished forever. It's a constant underlying terror, a quiet burden you carry, the knowledge that your collective survival depends on the frailties of individual memory. Every loss is not just a personal tragedy, but a potential blow to the very fabric of your culture. This fragility underscores the immense burden of oral tradition. Without writing, without permanent records, all knowledge from survival techniques to the emerging myths and stories that explain your world relies entirely on the memory and meticulous transmission within the group. Every individual, every elder, every storyteller is a living library. You learn the stories, the songs, the chants, not just for entertainment, but because they encode vital information about waterholes, hunting grounds, kin networks, and moral codes. You understand that your memories collectively are the only archives your people possess. It's profound responsibility, making every word, every lesson, every shared experience a crucial act of cultural preservation. Despite these remarkable daily innovations and the underlying cognitive potential, the trajectory of human development was profoundly influenced by intricate social dynamics and interactions with other hominin groups. The relentless environmental pressures were one thing, but the ways in which you organized yourselves, formed alliances, and even competed with other species were equally fundamental in shaping your collective survival. Your world, you realize, is not just a natural landscape, but a complex social one, fraught with its own challenges and opportunities. Beyond the immediate challenges of daily survival and the burgeoning technological prowess, you begin to understand that the broader story of Homo sapiens is deeply woven through complex power dynamics. For most of early human history, knowledge wasn't just valuable, it was profoundly vulnerable. Imagine a world where the insights of one brilliant individual, perhaps the inventor of a new hunting technique or a unique way to process certain foods, could easily be lost forever. If your population is too small or too isolated, these innovations might disappear with their creators swallowed by the vast silence of prehistory. This constant threat of knowledge vanishing is a stark reality, a profound fragility in the early human experience. You feel the weight of this, knowing that the breakthroughs of one generation are not guaranteed to survive into the next. This is the very essence of cultural drift, a pervasive, random loss of information. Think of all the subtle details of a complex ritual, the precise steps of a new tool-making process, or the nuanced understanding of animal behaviour that allows for a more successful hunt. In small scattered populations where interactions are infrequent and transmission lines are thin, these pieces of knowledge can simply fade. Forgetting often outpaced innovation, creating a patchy archaeological record that leaves modern scientists scratching their heads. You might find evidence of advanced techniques at one site only for them to seemingly vanish for tens of thousands of years before reappearing elsewhere, a testament to the cycles of gain and loss that characterized early human culture. It's like trying to maintain a complex network of computers with only a few users, where a single power outage could wipe out crucial data for good. This leads to a fascinating theory. There's a certain threshold for cultural complexity. The idea is that truly complex culture, the kind of cumulative knowledge that builds and improves over generations, only flourishes when population density reaches a certain critical point. Below this threshold, even brilliant innovations might be invented and reinvented countless times only to be forgotten again. But once enough people are interacting, once enough minds are connected, the redundancy and sustained transmission of ideas become possible. It's like reaching a critical mass where the collective memory of the group becomes more robust than the individuals. You start to feel the subtle shift as more people mean more opportunities for learning, for sharing, for reinforcing what's been learned. Your early Homo sapiens ancestors lived in small bands, typically ranging from 20 to 100 individuals. In such intimate groups, individual memory and specialized knowledge were absolutely critical. If Old Man Theron was the only one who knew how to find a certain rare medicinal herb after a flood, his memory was invaluable. But this also made the group highly susceptible to loss. A sudden illness, an accident, or a conflict could easily claim a key individual, taking with them a vital piece of the group's collective knowledge. This creates an inherent vulnerability, a constant pressure to ensure that essential information is shared and ingrained across as many minds as possible. You understand that your very survival depends on the strength of these personal connections and the reliability of your shared memories. The impact of climate catastrophes and genetic bottlenecks, which you experienced earlier, further amplified this fragility. These events didn't just reduce population numbers, they severely fragmented networks. When groups are isolated by vast stretches of desert or impassable terrain, the exchange of ideas and genes slows to a trickle. This leads to devastating information loss, pushing humanity to its very limits. You've seen the world shrink, the connections fray, and the potential for new ideas to take root dwindle. The ability to connect, to interact, to share was not just a social nicety. It was a fundamental mechanism of control over chaos, a vital element in your long journey toward a more stable and symbolic existence. As you navigate this ancient world, you find yourself not alone but constantly interacting with other hominin species. It's a complex tapestry of relationships, sometimes cooperative, sometimes competitive, and sometimes surprisingly intimate. You learn that Homo sapiens weren't just the sole players on the evolutionary stage. They shared the planet with cousins who were remarkably sophisticated in their own right. And in a twist that modern genetics has only recently revealed, you discover that your own lineage, the very blood coursing through your veins, carries echoes of these ancient encounters. Around 60,000 to 40,000 years ago, as your ancestors expanded out of Africa, they met and interbred with Neanderthals. You might carry a small percentage, perhaps 1 to 4% of Neanderthal DNA in your non-African genome. This isn't just an interesting footnote in your genetic history. It suggests a fascinating exchange. These weren't just random encounters, they were interactions that led to the sharing of vital genes. You might have inherited genes for immunity, perhaps a new defense against local pathogens, or genes that influenced your skin color, fat metabolism, or even adaptation to high altitudes. Imagine two groups, distinct yet similar, meeting on the edge of a cold European forest, sharing not just a landscape, but eventually a genetic legacy. Further east in Asia, your ancestors also encountered the mysterious Denisovans, If you trace your lineage to Oceanian populations, you might carry an even higher percentage, around 4–6% of Denisovan DNA. These genetic exchanges are a testament to a world far more interconnected and complex than previously imagined. It's a reminder that humanity's story isn't one of pure isolated development, but of a dynamic interplay between different branches of the human family tree. You are in essence a mosaic of ancient encounters, carrying the genetic memories of these long-lost cousins within you. This leads to the intriguing hybrid vigor theory. Some speculate that the mixing of genes from these archaic humans may have provided a crucial final ingredient, or subtly tweaked the sapiens' brain. Could these genetic infusions have contributed in some as yet unknown way to the cultural explosion that occurred around 50,000 years ago? It's a tantalizing thought, suggesting that the very richness of your cultural tapestry might have been woven from threads drawn from across the human family, a testament to the power of genetic diversity. And what of these other humans? Were they primitive brutes? Far from it. You'd learn that Neanderthals, for example, were not at all primitive, but distinctly different. They were incredibly sophisticated in their own right, crafting advanced tools of the Mousterian industry, sharp knives, scrapers and points designed for specific tasks. You'd see evidence of their compassion, like the careful burial of injured individuals at Shanidar Cave, suggesting a community that cared for its weakest members. You might even find hints of possible ritual burial, with pollen evidence suggesting flowers placed in graves hinting at a nascent symbolic life. And in places like La Pasiega in Spain or Brunicle Cave in France, you'd be confronted with abstract cave art's simple rings and lines, demonstrating their own capacity for symbolic expression. They were not lesser, but simply different, having adapted to the harsh European environments with their own unique brilliance. The Denisovans, too, were more than just a name in a genetic study. Evidence from Denisova Cave in Siberia reveals astonishing craftsmanship, such as a polished chlorite bracelet. This isn't just a utilitarian object, it's a piece of high-precision artistry, suggesting advanced technology and aesthetic sensibilities. The existence of such objects shatters any previous assumptions you might have held about our enigmatic human cousins, proving that complexity and beauty were not exclusive to Homo sapiens. You realise that your world was not simply a stage for your own species, but a vibrant contested space shared by multiple intelligent hominin groups, each leaving their own unique mark on the vast canvas of prehistory. Despite these moments of interbreeding and shared existence, you observe a brutally consistent pattern across the archaeological record. Neanderthals and Denisovans, along with other archaic human groups, consistently disappear from the fossil record within 10,000 tall to 15,000 years of Homo sapiens' arrival in their territories. This isn't necessarily a story of violent conquest or outright warfare, though skirmishes undoubtedly occurred. Instead, it's more likely a complex narrative of subtle competitive pressure on already fragile populations combined with demographic drift. Imagine a world where resources are scarce, and even a slight advantage in foraging efficiency, group size, or technological innovation can slowly, inexorably tip the balance. Your ancestors, with their adaptable brains and complex social networks, may have simply outcompeted these cousins over millennia, not with a bang, but with a slow, grinding attrition. The silence that follows their disappearance is a poignant reminder of the intricate and often unforgiving nature of evolution. You feel a strange sense of melancholy for these lost relatives, their intelligence and resilience now only whispers in your DNA. In a world teeming with such challenges and shifting landscapes, memory becomes an evolutionary advantage of paramount importance. It's not just about recalling where you left your tools. In chaotic, unpredictable worlds, remembering who helped you in a time of need, who betrayed your trust, and precisely where vital resources like that hidden spring that never dries up, or the seasonal migration route of a particular herd still flow, becomes as critical as any practical skill. You develop an internal map constantly updated with social and ecological data. Your mind becomes a complex database storing not just facts, but social contracts and environmental patterns. This ability to recall, to analyze, to predict based on past experience is a silent weapon in the daily struggle for survival. You recognize the patterns of the clouds, the feel of a particular soil, the faint scent on the wind, each a piece of information stored ready to be retrieved when needed. Trust and cooperation are not mere social niceties. They're essential for group survival, especially during periods of extreme hardship, such as the aftermath of the Toba eruption that you experienced. When the world is plunged into darkness and resources are devastated, isolated individuals perish. But groups bound by shared identity and mutual aid have a fighting chance. You learn to rely on your kin, on your chosen family, knowing that their survival is inextricably linked to your own. The warmth of a shared fire, the comfort of a shared meal, the silent understanding passed between you, these are the bedrock of resilience. This profound sense of community, of shared destiny, becomes a critical mechanism for enduring the relentless challenges nature throws at you. You learn that in the face of oblivion you are strongest together. This need for social cohesion gradually gives rise to early symbolic layers. These aren't yet grand myths or intricate artworks, but rather the subtle development of rules, codes, and songs that reinforce group identity and trust. Imagine the repetitive chants around a campfire, simple melodies that knit together the shared experiences and beliefs of your group. These serve as vital precursors to formal law or honor systems. They transmit simple yet powerful messages. Stay together. Remember this place. Trust this family. Beware that clan. These are the very first threads of culture woven from shared sound and simple meaning, binding individuals into a cohesive whole. You feel the subtle power of these shared expressions, recognizing them as the first steps toward a more deeply symbolic existence, where belief and shared understanding become as important as any physical tool. In this ancient world where survival hinges on the transmission of knowledge across generations, the value of storytelling transcends mere entertainment. Narratives become vital maps in unstable worlds. Imagine sitting around a flickering fire, the shadows dancing on the cave walls as an elder recounts a story. This isn't just a tale, it's an encoding of encyclopedic ecological knowledge. The story might describe the location of distant waterholes, the migratory routes of game animals, or the precise seasonal patterns for harvesting certain plants. These narratives transcend simple data. They are lifelines in times of uncertainty passed down with meticulous care. Think of the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories, which famously map entire landscapes through intricate narratives. You learn that a story isn't just a story. It's a living, breathing guide to your world, a repository of collective memory that truly weaves meaning into survival. The rhythm of the elder's voice, the familiar cadence of the tale, becomes a comforting anchor in a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable. But these early symbolic stirrings, this nascent need for shared meaning, also highlight a profound paradox in your journey as Homo sapiens. You, with a biologically modern body and the intricate machinery of a human mind, were for hundreds of thousands of years behaviourally something quieter, something missing in the symbolic record. It's a haunting blankness in the inner lives of your earliest ancestors. You possessed the same hands capable of delicate craftsmanship, the same vocal tract capable of complex sound, the same perceptive eyes that could discern the subtle patterns of nature. Yet you left behind an archaeological record eerily silent on the matter of explicit symbolic thought. This absence of explicit symbolic behaviour is a persistent puzzle. You find no clear art, no beads, no grave goods accompanying the deceased, no musical instruments carved from bone, No engraved stones, no figurines, no clear signs of religion or myth for hundreds of thousands of years after the emergence of Homo sapiens at Jebel Irhoud. It's a profound void suggesting that while the biological hardware was in place, the software of complex symbolic culture had not yet fully loaded. You might wonder, looking at the intricate tools they made, why this incredible ingenuity didn't immediately translate into symbolic expression. Of course, there's the absence of evidence debate, a crucial point of contention among anthropologists. You'd hear arguments that early human culture was likely made of perishable materials. Imagine art woven from plant fibres, body adornments crafted from feathers or dried flowers, ephemeral markings made with plant dyes on skin or temporary surfaces, wood carvings, woven baskets, painted animal skins. All would simply vanish over 300,000 years, leaving no trace in the archaeological record. So is the silence truly an absence, or merely a testament to the unforgiving nature of deep time which preserves only the most durable remnants? You consider this imagining vibrant living cultures that have simply disintegrated into dust, leaving only faint echoes for you to interpret. It's a humbling thought making you question how much of history truly survives for you to see. This leads to theories about internal versus external imagination, some suggesting that early human minds were indeed capable of imagination and dreaming of complex internal narratives just like yours. You would have experienced vivid dreams, feared unseen spirits, imagined scenarios and contemplated the unknown. But perhaps they did not yet have the need or the organised capacity to externalize these internal worlds into physical objects or lasting records. The symbolic thought might have existed solely within the mind, a rich private world, but without the societal pressures or structural mechanisms to manifest it outwardly. It's like having a brilliant idea but no means to write it down or share it effectively with a wider audience. The thought is there, but the means of expression are dormant. The unsettling question that arises from this time hole is whether human symbol creation is inherent or contingent. You might instinctively feel that symbols are an inevitable part of being human, something deeply wired into your species. But what if it's not? What if the ability to create and share symbols is contingent upon specific pressures, unique opportunities, and the emergence of particular social structures? This line of questioning forces you to re-examine your own assumed destiny, to ponder if the explosion of meaning around 50,000 years ago was an absolute certainty or a fortunate complex convergence of factors. It challenges the very notion of what it means to be human, suggesting that your symbolic world isn't a given but a hard-won achievement. For these early Homo sapiens, communication likely centred on immediate practicalities. Imagine a group coordinating a hunt. Intricate hand signals, subtle vocalizations, and shared understanding would be paramount for success. Your communication would revolve around resource location, where to find water, where the best foraging grounds are, and group dynamics, managing relationships and resolving immediate conflicts. These forms of communication, while sophisticated and vital for survival, would lack the layers of abstract meaning, the rich tapestry of metaphor and myth that would later define your species. It's a pragmatic world where every sound and gesture serves a direct, tangible purpose. You are communicating to survive, not yet to create shared narratives of wonder or complex spiritual frameworks. Yet even in these silent eras, there were early flickering, subtle hints of the symbolic revolution to come, like a distant lightning strike on the horizon. These weren't yet the full blaze, but tentative sparks suggesting that the capacity for deeper engagement with meaning was stirring. One of the first whispers of this emerging consciousness comes from a haunting discovery at Herto, Ethiopia, dating back approximately 160,000 years. Here, you find a child's skull bearing deliberate cut marks. This isn't just evidence of a death. It's evidence of a profound engagement with the deceased, an act that moves beyond simple life or death survival to ponder what comes next. The interpretation of this act is shrouded in the ambiguity of deep time. Was it an act of cannibalism, a brutal necessity in a harsh world? Was it a mortuary practice, a way of preparing the body for a journey into an imagined afterlife? Or was it an early tentative form of ancestor worship, an attempt to honour and connect with those who had passed? You can only speculate, but the very act of deliberate modification, the cut marks on the bone, hints at a mind contemplating death, a mind that sees more than just a lifeless body. It suggests an early form of grief, a profound curiosity about what lies beyond the veil and nascent spiritual stir. It's a chilling yet deeply significant echo from the past, indicating that the human mind was beginning to wrestle with concepts far beyond the immediate and the tangible. This ambiguity highlights the immense challenges of interpreting deep time's faint echoes. You're looking at shadows, trying to discern meaning from fragmented clues, aware that your modern interpretations might miss the full context of these ancient practices. But even with the uncertainty, the Hairto skull stands as a testament to an early human engagement with the profound, a quiet signal that the inner world of Homo sapiens was slowly, imperceptibly beginning to stir, preparing for the dramatic awakening that would forever change the course of history. As you continue your journey through the subtle stirrings of early symbolism, your attention turns to one of the most pivotal archaeological discoveries, the Blombos Cave in South Africa. Imagine stepping into this coastal cave bathed in the filtered light from the entrance around 75,000 years ago. Here you find the earliest undisputed trace of meaning, something that transcends mere utility and speaks directly to a mind creating abstract thought. These aren't just accidental scratches, they're cross-hatched patterns meticulously scratched onto pieces of ochre. You can almost feel the deliberate intentional effort of the hand that created them. These abstract geometric designs found deep within the cave are a tangible echo of a non-utilitarian purpose, a message sent across vast millennia. The symbolic function of these ochre pieces sparks intense debate. Were they maps guiding others to crucial resources? Were they ownership marks declaring a personal or group claim? Perhaps clan symbols uniting individuals under a shared identity? Or even early forms of notation, a primitive way of recording information? The precise meaning might be forever lost to you, but their very existence emphasizes their purpose as a unique form of silent communication. These aren't practical tools. They are pure symbols crafted with intention, meant to convey something beyond the immediate and the tangible. They mark a profound shift, a clear signal that the human mind was not just observing the world, but actively imposing abstract meaning upon it. It's like finding the very first written word, even if you don't know what it says. But Blombos Cave offers more than just engraved ochre. You also find shell beads painstakingly drilled Nasarius shells. Imagine the hours of meticulous labour involved finding the tiny shells, carefully drilling a hole through each one without breaking it, smoothing the edges, and then stringing them together. These weren't worn by chance. They were strung as necklaces or sewn onto clothing. Their purpose: to signal identity status or group affiliation in a visually arresting manner. You see someone adorned with these beads, and you immediately understand that they are communicating something about themselves, their role, their belonging, their importance. It's a silent, powerful language of personal adornment. The meaning of a bead, you realize, is immense. Hours of effort are spent on something with no direct survival value. It doesn't feed you. It doesn't keep you warm. It doesn't offer protection. Its worth is purely symbolic and crucially portable. A bead is a declaration, a personal identifier that you carry with you, signalling your place in the social fabric. It marks a profound threshold moment for human identity and adornment, demonstrating a conscious desire to differentiate, to belong, to express oneself beyond the purely functional. It's the birth of fashion of jewellery, but with a deeper, more fundamental purpose than mere aesthetics. You understand that this small, painstakingly crafted object represents a monumental leap in human self-awareness. However, this early symbolic revolution was remarkably fragile. These behaviours, the engraved ochre, the shell beads, appeared flourished for a time, and then seemingly vanished from the archaeological record. This indicates an intermittent and localised emergence rather than a widespread lasting adoption. It was a fleeting glimpse of a future yet to solidify a tentative experiment in symbolic culture that for reasons unknown didn't immediately take root across all populations. It's like a small fire that ignites, burns brightly for a moment, then flickers out, waiting for the right conditions to truly catch hold. You're witnessing the very first vulnerable steps of a symbolic mind, a powerful idea that would eventually change everything, but one that still struggled to find its permanent footing in the vastness of prehistory. Even as the symbolic flame flickered uncertainly, your ancestors were perfecting another more subtle but equally profound cognitive skill memory as a survival tool. Imagine yourself on the coast perhaps around 150,000 to 130,000 years ago, at a place like Pinnacle Point where humanity found a crucial refuge. Here, survival wasn't just about quick reflexes or strong muscles, it was about reading the ocean. You would learn to observe the tides, charting their ebb and flow with an almost scientific precision. You'd track the cycles of the moon, understanding its profound influence on the marine environment. The rhythmic sound of waves, the salty air, the subtle shifts in currents. These weren't just background noise. They were vital data points meticulously collected and stored in your mind. This wasn't abstract theory. It was direct experiential knowledge for systematic shellfish harvesting. You needed to know exactly when the lowest tides would expose the richest beds, when certain species would be most abundant, and how long you had before the water reclaimed its bounty. It demanded the mapping of time and patterns, a deeply attuned connection to the natural world. You weren't just gathering, you were engaging in a form of proto-science and resource management. This quiet experiment in understanding and remembering environmental rules predicting the ocean's behaviour laid a subtle yet powerful foundation for future systems of thought. It taught you to see connections, to anticipate, to plan, not just for the immediate moment, but for cycles that stretched across weeks and months. Your mind was constantly calculating, observing and retaining, turning the vast, unpredictable ocean into a predictable larder. Think about the sheer cognitive load required for this. You didn't have calendars or tide charts. Everything had to be remembered, processed and passed down verbally. Imagine an elder pointing to the moon, describing its phases and linking them directly to the bounty of the sea. You'd learn through observation, through participation, through the subtle cues of your community. The smell of the ocean breeze, the feel of the wet sand, the taste of a freshly shucked mussel. These sensory inputs would be intrinsically linked to the complex cognitive maps you were building in your mind. This wasn't just practical skill. It was the birth of sophisticated memory systems crucial for navigating a world without written records. And this systematic exploitation of marine resources wasn't just about getting enough to eat. It was about sustaining a population. The ability to manage a resource, ensuring it wasn't over-harvested, meant that your group could return to the same spots season after season. It was a long-term strategy born from a deep understanding of ecological limits and the importance of sustainability. This foresight, this quiet wisdom speaks volumes about the intelligence present in these early human communities. You recognize that these subtle cognitive advancements, though lacking overt symbolic flair, were just as fundamental to your species' success as any new tool or hunting technique. They were the silent building blocks of a mind capable of eventually conceptualizing entire worlds beyond the immediate. As you walk along the ancient coastlines, you notice something else that speaks volumes about this subtle, cumulative knowledge, the middens. These massive shell piles aren't just ancient refuse dumps. They serve as visible generational archives. Imagine mounds of discarded shells layer upon layer stretching back in time. Each shell represents a meal, a successful harvest, a moment in the life of your ancestors. These middens physically link current generations to an ancestral presence and to sustainable practices. You can literally see the evidence of generations returning to the same spot, harvesting the same resources, embodying a continuous tradition of knowledge and survival. They are silent testaments to enduring knowledge, a kind of unwritten history, etched into the landscape itself. You might point to a particularly large midden and tell a child, "See, your great-grandparents ate from here just like us. This is our place." It's a powerful connection to the past, a physical manifestation of shared memory and successful resource management. Even ochre, which you've already considered for its functional uses, might have played a deeper role in memory. Beyond being a simple pigment or a protective agent, it's possible that ochre served as a mnemonic device. Imagine a piece of ochre perhaps with a distinctive colour or texture associated with a particular story, a specific hunting ground, or a significant event. It could have been a physical focus for stories, a tangible link to identity, and a spark for the imagination of possibilities. Think of how a specific scent can trigger a powerful memory for you today. For early humans, a piece of ochre might have held an unspoken weight of meaning, becoming a silent prompt for crucial information. Perhaps the deep red of a particular ochre reminded you of a successful hunt, or a lighter shade recalled a time of famine. Even the act of heat-treating silkcrete, which often resulted in a reddish hue, might have become associated with the knowledge and mastery of fire, a tangible reminder of a complex technological process. Then quite suddenly the great explosion occurs. Around 50,000 years ago, or perhaps a little earlier, around 45,000 years ago, in some places the profound silence of the symbolic world is broken by a global emergence of symbolic art. It's as if the world collectively took a breath and then exhaled meaning. You find simultaneous eruptions of symbolic expression across continents: Europe, Indonesia, Spain, Africa, Australia. It's not a single origin point, but a synchronized awakening, a sudden dramatic blossoming of human creativity and abstract thought. This isn't just a trickle, it's a flood. Suddenly you are confronted with breathtaking cave paintings. These aren't crude sketches, they are dynamic, anatomically precise depictions of animals. Imagine bison, lions, horses, babirusa, a wild pig-like animal rendered with such life that they seem to shimmer and move in the flickering firelight. At Chauvet Cave in France, 36,000 years ago, Sulawesi in Indonesia, 45,000 years ago, and El Castillo in Spain, 40,000 years ago, you see masterpieces of prehistoric art. The skill, the perspective, the understanding of animal form and movement are astounding. You can almost feel the presence of these creatures frozen in time on the cave walls, leaping and charging with an almost supernatural energy. These aren't just illustrations, they are windows into the minds of your ancestors, revealing a complex internal world. These images weren't simply decorative. You understand that this art was deeply intertwined with ritual and magic. It was viewed not as mere illustration, but as an act of creation, an attempt to control, honor, summon, or appease the powerful forces that shaped survival. Hunters painting their fears and desires in the wombs of the earth deep within the caves were engaging in a profound dialogue with their world. They believed that by capturing the spirit of the animal on the stone, they could influence the outcome of the hunt, ensuring bounty or protection. The paintings are prayers, spells, wishes etched in stone, connecting the human spirit to the animal world in a bond of reverence and necessity. You feel the sacredness of these spaces, the ancient power resonating from the painted walls, a testament to a world where meaning and magic were deeply intertwined. Amidst the magnificent animal depictions, you also find a more personal, poignant form of expression: handprints. These negative hand silhouettes found in caves like El Castillo and Sulawesi are more than just marks. They are declaration signatures across time. Imagine pressing your hand against the rough cave wall, then spraying pigment around it, leaving behind the ghostly imprint of your presence. Are they pleas for remembrance, a way of saying, "I was here"? Or are they powerful statements of belonging to place and lineage, staking a claim to a sacred space? You can almost feel the texture of the rock against your palm, the spray of pigment, the quiet act of leaving an undeniable mark. These aren't just art. They're voices from the past reaching out, connecting you to the individuals who stood in that very spot tens of thousands of years ago. Each handprint is a testament to individuality and collective identity, a simple yet profound gesture that resonates across millennia. But the explosion of meaning wasn't just visual, it was auditory as well. Imagine the quiet of a Paleolithic cave, perhaps with a fire flickering, casting long dancing shadows. And then a sound emerges, a melody, a breath pushed through a hollowed bone, vibrating the air, vibrating the soul. You hear the oldest known flutes carved meticulously from bird bone, and mammoth ivory discovered at sites like Hohlfels in Germany, dating back an astonishing 43,000 to 44,000 years ago. This discovery is profound. It proves that music predated cities' writing and agriculture. Long before humans built permanent settlements or developed complex agricultural systems, they were creating music. This isn't just about entertainment. It speaks to the idea of soundscapes of meaning. Imagine these caves echoing not just with images, but with sound, with memory. The acoustics of certain cave chambers are remarkable, amplifying voices, creating resonant spaces. Music in this context wasn't just noise. It was a way to connect, to communicate, to enter altered states of consciousness during rituals. You can almost feel the vibrations of the flute in your chest, the way the sound fills the cavernous space, creating a multi-sensory experience of deep time. It suggests that your ancestors were not just seeing and doing, but feeling and creating in a profoundly emotional and communal way. The mournful cry of a flute in the darkness of a cave would have been an incredibly powerful transformative experience, binding the community together, connecting them to the spirit world. And then there's the increasing frequency of elaborate burials, hinting at a growing belief in an afterlife. You observe graves stained with red ochre smeared on bodies, or bones mixed into pigments used in burial rituals. This red isn't just a colour, it's a symbol. It's the colour of blood, of life, of the sunset of the inside of the body. It speaks of rebirth, of transition, of a return to the earth, or perhaps a journey to another realm. This global appearance of ochre-stained graves suggests a widespread understanding of death as more than just an end, but as passage, a transformation. You feel the solemnity of these rituals, the quiet grief mixed with hope, as bodies are carefully prepared for their final journey. The ultimate expression of this belief comes in the form of grave goods. Imagine visiting Sungir, Russia around 34,000 years ago. Here you find the burials of children adorned with thousands of ivory beads. Thousands. Think of the staggering labour involved in crafting each tiny bead, in drilling each hole, in polishing each surface. This wasn't for practical return. It was purely for meaning and remembrance beyond survival. These grave goods signify profound love, immense respect, and a belief that the deceased would carry these tokens into the next world. You grasp the immense emotional weight of these burials, the depth of the attachment, the shared belief that life continued in some form beyond the physical. It's a powerful testament to the emergence of complex spiritual frameworks, where death is not the final chapter, but merely a transition, requiring ritual remembrance and the profound power of shared belief. You start to understand that in these elaborate burials, in the meticulous care given to the deceased, a powerful concept is being forged. Tradition itself transforms memory into ritual. And ritual, you realize, is the very essence of culture. It's the mechanism by which individual memories become collective, by which the past is actively reenacted and brought into the present. The red ochre, the grave goods, the specific placement of the body. These are not random acts. They are structured, repeated, and imbued with shared meaning. They link the living and the dead in an unbreakable chain, a continuous conversation between generations. You participate in these rituals, feeling the weight of the past, the presence of those who came before, and the responsibility to carry these practices forward. It's how stories become sacred, how actions gain profound significance, and how a group solidifies its identity and its beliefs. This explosion of meaning around 50,000 years ago isn't just about art and music. It signals a fundamental reorganization of the human mind itself. You develop what psychologists call recursive thought, the ability to layer thoughts inside other thoughts. It's not just seeing a deer, but contemplating the idea of a deer, its spirit, its significance in your cosmology. It's not just recognizing a friend, but recalling the memory of a friend, and then perhaps remembering the time you and that friend shared that particular story. This ability to step back to reflect, to embed meaning within meaning, forms the very architecture of story myth and complex language. Your mind is no longer just processing immediate sensory input. It's building intricate mental constructs, creating worlds within worlds. You feel your own thoughts unfolding in layers, recognizing the profound power of this internal shift. Crucially, knowledge begins to reside not just in one individual, but in the entire group. This is collective cognition. No single person holds the entire map of your world. Instead, each person holds a piece of it, a unique perspective, or a specialized skill. This necessitates constant teaching, conversation, argument, and ultimately consensus to build a shared understanding. Imagine a debate around the campfire about the best hunting strategy for a new territory, or the interpretation of an ancient dream. Everyone contributes their piece, challenging, refining, and collectively building a more complete picture. This isn't just sharing, it's a dynamic, iterative process of knowledge creation. Your group's intelligence becomes exponentially greater than the sum of its individual parts. This leads to cumulative culture, the unique human ability to pass on knowledge building upon previous generations' discoveries, rather than starting anew with each generation. This isn't just about repetition. It's about improvement, refinement, and expansion. A tool design from 10,000 years ago isn't just copied. It's adapted, made more efficient, or combined with new materials. A story isn't just retold. It's elaborated, enriched with new insights connected to other narratives. This leads to a profound snowball effect of innovation and understanding. You realize that your generation stands on the shoulders of giants, inheriting a vast legacy of knowledge that you in turn will add to and pass on. It's the engine of progress, setting humanity on an entirely new trajectory. And in this complex, often unpredictable world, myth emerges as a vital survival mechanism. Stories become much more than entertainment. They are maps in unstable worlds. They encode encyclopedic ecological knowledge, the precise locations of waterholes, the intricate migration routes of animals, the subtle patterns of seasonal change in narratives that transcend simple data. A story about a trickster god who brings the rains might also detail the signs of an impending drought, or the specific plants that thrive after a wet season. These narratives are lifelines in times of uncertainty, ensuring that critical information is remembered, transmitted, and understood not as dry facts, but as living, breathing truths. You listen to these myths, feeling their power, recognizing them as the shared wisdom of your ancestors, protecting you and guiding you through the vast, unpredictable expanse of your world. Beyond mere utility, you recognize a profound truth. Symbols, myths, and rituals are not simply practical tools for survival, though they undeniably serve that purpose. They are at their core a declaration of belonging, an articulation of identity, and a profound, often spiritual connection to something larger than oneself. When you participate in a ritual, when you share a myth, when you adorn yourself with a symbolic bead, you're not just performing an action, you're affirming your place in the cosmos, your connection to your ancestors, and your bond with your community. It's the moment when the practical becomes sacred, when the tangible world is imbued with intangible meaning. You feel the deep resonance of these shared beliefs, understanding that they feed a hunger far deeper than physical sustenance, a hunger for meaning, purpose, and connection. This explosion of meaning around 50,000 years ago represents a critical turning point where external memory truly begins. Information which was once confined to the fragile meat of the brain begins to escape and enter the world through art artifacts and rituals. Imagine a cave painting. It's not just a beautiful image, it's a durable external memory, a record that transcends the lifespan of any single individual. The knowledge it depicts, the stories it evokes, are now permanently etched into the stone, available for future generations to see, interpret, and learn from. This frees human knowledge from the limitations of individual memory, creating a collective resilient archive that is no longer lost with each death. You realise that this is the beginning of history itself, the moment when humanity started to write its story, not just in fleeting thoughts, but in enduring forms. This is also the point where exponential recursion takes hold. Cultural accumulation accelerates, rapidly snowballing. Each generation inherits and remixes the discoveries of all prior generations, adding their own innovations, stacking memory upon memory in an unstoppable cascade. Imagine a small stream joining a river, which then joins a mighty delta. The flow of information, once a trickle, becomes a torrent. A new tool isn't just improved upon once, it's refined over decades, then centuries, each iteration building on the last. A story isn't just remembered, it's embellished, connected to other stories, forming an increasingly complex mythology. This self-feeding loop, this pattern that transforms everything from ancient cave paintings to the blinking data centers of today, becomes the fire that never went out. You begin to recognize that the fundamental structure of symbols as tools for compressing meaning and extending shared memory outside the body remains constant across all human history, regardless of the platform. Whether it's a cross-hatched pattern on ochre 75,000 years ago, a cave painting from 40,000 years ago, or a digital image on a screen today, the underlying cognitive process is the same. It's about taking complex ideas and representing them in a condensed, shareable format. It's about externalizing thought, making it durable and transmissible. You see the ancient echo in the modern world, the continuity of a profound human impulse to create, to record, to share meaning across time and space. This leads to the unsettling idea that the explosion is not a past event but an ongoing accelerating process. It's a metastasis of the Paleolithic into the digital age, continuously reshaping human experience at an ever-increasing pace. From the first scratch on a stone to the global network of information you access today, it's all part of the same continuous cascade of cultural accumulation. You feel the incredible momentum of this process, recognizing that you are living in a moment of unprecedented acceleration, where knowledge and symbols are being created and shared at a speed unimaginable to your ancient ancestors. Yet even with this seemingly unstoppable accumulation, you carry a quiet underlying terror, the fragility of accumulated knowledge. Despite the exponential growth of culture and memory, you understand that they are not permanent. The possibility of fracture loss and even the recurrence of the time hole is always present if those vital memory networks collapse. Imagine a catastrophic event, a global disaster, or a societal breakdown that severs the links between generations, destroying libraries, digital archives, and oral traditions. What would be lost? Everything. It's a sobering thought, a reminder that the continuity of your species' story, the very fabric of your culture, is a precious and vulnerable thing, constantly requiring maintenance and transmission. You recognize that the past, for all its grand achievements, is always just a few steps away from being forgotten, and that the present carries the burden of keeping those memories alive. While the symbolic mind gradually emerged and then exploded, its very development was profoundly shaped by the harsh foundational realities of the ancient world. You've journeyed through the relentless environmental pressures, the fluctuating populations, and the intricate social dynamics. These weren't mere backdrops. They were the sculptors of your consciousness, the crucible in which your unique cognitive abilities were forged. The environment demanded adaptability, the populations demanded resilience, and the social fabric demanded connection. All of these forces converged to set the stage for the dramatic awakening you've been exploring. It's crucial, therefore, to now ground yourself once more in these deep foundational realities. Not to re-describe them, for you've already experienced their raw power, but to see how they precisely contributed to that ultimate explosion of meaning shaping Homo sapiens' existence for hundreds of millennia. From their very anatomy, as we explored earlier, to the relentless environmental forces that perpetually tested their survival, everything was a piece of the puzzle. You're a product of this long, arduous journey, each challenge leaving its indelible mark and preparing the ground for the cultural fire. Consider again the early appearance of modern human features as seen at Jebel Irhoud, Morocco, around 315,000 years ago. You observed that unmistakably modern flat face, the tucked-in cheekbones, and the rounded jawline. What was the significance of this anatomical modernity predating widespread symbolic culture? It poses the profound paradox. The physical capacity for complex thought was there. The hardware was ready. But the software, the shared symbolic meaning, was still developing. This early arrival of your modern form suggests that the potential for the eventual explosion lay dormant within these bodies, waiting for the right confluence of circumstances to ignite. It was a promise waiting to be fulfilled, a silence pregnant with future meaning. Then reflect on the mosaic of archaic and modern traits you observed at Florisbad, South Africa, 260 Kia, and Herto, Ethiopia, 160 Kia. This wasn't a linear march, but a gradual, complex assembly of traits. This slow, non-linear development of your physical form meant that the cognitive capacities were likely also developing incrementally, not in a sudden flash. This mosaic evolution suggests a long period of tinkering, of subtle, biological refinements that prepared the brain for the intricate demands of symbolic thought and recursive thinking. The body in its gradual perfection was setting the stage for the mind to finally soar. It's only when you arrive at sites like Omo Kibish in Ethiopia, dating back approximately 205,000 to 195,000 years ago, that you see the oldest fossil unequivocally representing a fully Homo sapiens. This individual possessed the high forehead, the distinct chin, and the perfectly rounded brain case that are the hallmarks of your species. This fully modern anatomical form was the completed vessel capable of housing the sophisticated brain that would eventually create the world of art, myth, and deep meaning. The physical evolution was complete. The stage was now truly set for the cultural revolution. Recall the advanced Middle Stone Age tools, the prepared core tools, pointed spear tips, scrapers and blades, Levallois technology crafted by the Jebel Irhoud people. As you've seen, this demonstrated not just engineering skill, but sophisticated foresight. Now consider this technological prowess not just as a survival mechanism, but as a silent prerequisite for symbolism. The mental capacity required to envision a complex tool before striking the stone, to plan multiple steps ahead, to understand cause and effect. With such precision, these are the very cognitive foundations upon which abstract thought and symbolic representation would eventually be built. Tools were not just physical objects. They were physical manifestations of complex mental operations training the brain for higher order thinking. The mastery of fire as a technology, especially for transforming stone, e.g., Pinnacle Point's heat treatment of Silkrete 164 Kiam, further underscores this quiet cognitive development. It was an applied science demanding careful observation and the meticulous transmission of subtle information across generations. This process of understanding transformation, of seeing potential beyond raw material, of teaching and learning complex procedures, was a powerful ongoing exercise for the evolving human mind. It fostered the kind of systematic thinking, experimentation, and intergenerational knowledge transfer that would later become essential for building cumulative symbolic cultures. The smoke from these ancient fires, you might imagine, carried not just the scent of cooked food, but the subtle, unacknowledged essence of scientific inquiry and shared learning. This wasn't happening in isolated pockets. The weakly structured STEM model, where your species emerged from a network of populations across Africa, constantly exchanging genes and survival strategies, was also critical. This interconnectedness, this ancestral braid, meant that innovations, whether technological or social, could spread, be refined, and become robust. It prevented stagnation and ensured that a broader pool of cognitive potential was always available. The constant mixing and mingling created a marketplace of ideas, even in deep time, allowing for a more dynamic and resilient development of the human mind, gradually increasing the chances for symbolic thought to emerge and take root. However, this journey was punctuated by the great bottlenecks, where the core economy and resource management were relentlessly tested. The Pleistocene Ice Age chaos, with sea levels fluctuating by 130 metres, profoundly impacted rainfall and ecosystems. These were not just environmental shifts, they were periods of intense selective pressure. Only the most adaptable, the most resourceful, and those with the most robust internal cognitive maps could survive. This brutal training ground, while devastating, pushed the human mind to its limits, honing its capacity for problem-solving and environmental understanding in ways that were crucial for the eventual development of complex cultural systems. The African mega-droughts, 135 K70 Kia, with Lake Malawi nearly drying up multiple times, created apocalyptic centuries of hyper-arid desert. You recall the sheer desperation for water. These extreme conditions forged a species uniquely capable of resilience and profound memory. Remembering where water might be even years later, or recalling complex narratives encoding such information, became a matter of life and death. The pressure to retain and transmit vital ecological knowledge undoubtedly sharpened the very neural pathways associated with memory and narrative, laying a foundation for the mythologies that would later carry meaning across generations. The parched earth demanded an internal richness of mind. The Sahara's transformation, pulsing between lush green and barren desert, constantly forced migrations and cultural adaptation. This environmental dynamism meant that flexibility and the ability to innovate new survival strategies were paramount. Populations living on these shifting edges were forced to be intellectually nimble, constantly learning and adapting. This crucible of change fostered cognitive agility, making the human mind adept at re-evaluating, replanning, and reorganizing knowledge, skills that are inherently linked to the development of recursive thought and symbolic construction. The desert, in its brutal indifference, indirectly shaped the human capacity for abstract adaptation. Then the Toba supervolcano eruption, Sumatra, 74 Kaya. A cataclysmic event that blocked sunlight caused global temperatures to plummet by 3.5 degrees, creating a volcanic ice age. This ecological collapse devastated plant life, animals, and fisheries. You recall the world plunged into chilling darkness. This extreme bottleneck pushing humanity to the edge of oblivion, as evidenced by genetic studies showing populations possibly reduced to fewer than 10,000 individuals was a profound test of collective resilience. Only groups with robust social cohesion, effective communication for coordinated survival, and the beginnings of shared understanding could have weathered such a storm. It forced an intensity of social bonding and shared purpose that likely accelerated the need for an appreciation of early symbolic markers for group identity and trust. In such small scattered populations emerging from these bottlenecks, the concept of cultural drift was a constant threat. As you've witnessed, innovations and knowledge could easily vanish. This inherent fragility of knowledge created immense pressure to develop more reliable mechanisms for transmission. This very pressure, this fear of forgetting, might have been a hidden driver for the eventual externalization of memory into symbols. If knowledge kept disappearing, the impetus to make it durable and external would become overwhelming. The time hole was not just a blankness but a desperate plea for permanence. This constant risk of loss underpins the demographic ratchet theory, the hypothesis that complex culture only emerges and persists when populations are large enough to reliably maintain and transmit it. These early bottlenecks, by reducing population size, intermittently reset the ratchet, wiping out cultural gains. But each time populations recovered and grew, the potential for cumulative culture re-emerged with renewed urgency. The relentless cycle of population crash and recovery, you realize, was a slow, painful lesson in the necessity of scale for sustained cultural development, building the pressure for the inevitable explosion when conditions finally allowed. Interestingly, the idea that stable climates and small populations offered little selective pressure for innovation, while harsh fluctuating climates might trigger it, is crucial here. The very chaos of the ancient world, as brutal as it was, acted as a relentless forge for human ingenuity. It was a constant demand for mental flexibility, for problem solving, for the creation of new strategies, all skills that would be repurposed and amplified when the symbolic mind truly ignited. The world's relentless fury didn't just break, it also built piece by painstaking piece the cognitive toolkit for future meaning. The coastal refuges that you've explored, like Pinnacle Point, offered consistent marine resources, providing vital resilience against brutal inland droughts and supporting concentrated, albeit fragile, populations. These refuges were more than just safe havens. They were laboratories for social and cultural development. By allowing populations to become more stable and denser than in the harsh interior, they created the very conditions, increased interaction, sustained group size that the demographic ratchet theory suggests are necessary for cumulative culture to take hold. The rhythmic sound of waves, the salty air, and the predictable bounty of the sea provided a precious stability, a lull in the chaos, allowing the delicate seeds of symbolic thought to germinate. Ultimately, the relentless crucible of climate chaos profoundly forged the modern human genome, making adaptability the single most valuable skill for survival. This genetic predisposition for adaptability, honed over hundreds of millennia of environmental upheaval, wasn't just about physical survival, it was also about mental flexibility. It meant that when the conditions for symbolic culture finally aligned, the human brain was exquisitely prepared to learn to innovate and to apply abstract thought to an astonishing array of cultural expressions. The very definition of home being something that could evaporate within a lifetime meant that your species became masters of continuous adjustment, preparing your minds for the fluidity and complexity of symbolic worlds. Yet this adaptability and genetic resilience come with a poignant counterpoint: the drowned library. You understand that vast coastal lands like the Sunda Shelf and Doggerland, submerged by rising sea levels after the Ice Age, potentially hide entire crucial chapters of human history and early cultural development. These lost worlds represent not just lost populations, but potentially lost cultural experiments, early symbolic expressions, narratives, and social structures that never made it into the enduring archaeological record. The haunting thought of these submerged histories reinforces the fragility of knowledge. and makes the eventual explosion of meaning even more remarkable, a triumph emerging despite vast historical erasures. Thus, the profound narrative of symbolic awakening emerges from a complex convergence of factors. The combined pressures of a volatile planet, the profound interactions with ancient cousins like Neanderthals and Denisovans, with their genetic contributions and competitive dynamics, and the eventual convergence of dense interconnected human networks ultimately forged the unique cognitive landscape. This landscape would around 50,000 years ago finally allow the human mind to ignite in a blaze of symbolic meaning, echoing through all subsequent history. It was a long, slow burn leading to an incandescent spark that illuminated the path to everything you are today, a culmination of millennia of subtle shifts and powerful pressures finally breaking through the silence. The threshold effect is central to understanding how Homo sapiens finally broke through the long silence. Mathematical models often used by researchers to understand complex systems demonstrate that once human group sizes crossed a critical threshold, perhaps a few hundred to a few thousand individuals, innovation began to snowball. It wasn't a linear progression, it was an exponential leap. Below this threshold, as you've seen, cultural knowledge was constantly vulnerable to loss. But once the numbers were sufficient, the rate of cultural loss dramatically decreased. Imagine trying to keep a complex secret with only 10 people. It's precarious. But with 1,000, the chances of it being entirely forgotten dwindle significantly. This sheer increase in population density and the number of minds interacting was the turning point. This increase in numbers led directly to the redundancy of knowledge. When enough people were connected often enough, even if someone forgot a crucial skill or a vital story someone else remembered, it created a resilient collective memory that buffered against loss. Think of it like a decentralized database where the same information is stored in multiple places. If one server goes down, the data is still safe. This redundancy meant that innovations could be maintained refined and built upon rather than constantly being reinvented or lost to cultural drift. You are no longer relying on the fragile memory of a few individuals, but on the robust interconnected memory of an entire community. It was a massive leap in collective intelligence and cultural stability. Crucially, a period of climate calming after brutal ice ages and droughts played a significant role in allowing this population growth. Imagine a sustained period of relative environmental stability, perhaps stretching across several millennia. This allowed groups to settle more reliably, to exploit resources more consistently, and crucially to grow in number. Increased interaction between these larger, more stable populations meant that networks could solidify, and knowledge could flow more freely and frequently. The chaos of the past gave way to a brief, precious window of stability, providing the fertile ground upon which cumulative culture could finally flourish. You recognize that even the greatest human achievements often depend on the benevolent whims of the planet. This confluence of factors led to the powerful emergence of cumulative culture. Knowledge began accumulating, compounding, and improving across generations. Tool refinement became a continuous process, each generation adding a subtle improvement to the design or manufacturing technique. Stories were not just remembered but elaborated upon their narratives, weaving in new insights and connecting to other myths, creating richer, more complex cosmologies. Rituals were not merely repeated but refined their meaning, deepened their symbolism, becoming more intricate. This exponential increase in cultural complexity was the engine of your species' success, creating a rich tapestry of shared understanding that grew denser and more resilient with each passing century. The impact of this cultural explosion was profound, particularly on migration patterns. The population expansions out of Africa, which had been tentative and often met with dead ends in earlier periods around 80,000 to 60,000 years ago, now became successful and lasting. Why? Precisely due to increased numbers and the newfound stability of their collective memory. Larger groups equipped with a more robust and cumulative culture were better able to adapt to new environments to withstand challenges and to establish enduring settlements beyond their African homeland. You realise that this wasn't just a physical migration. It was a cultural one powered by the collective brain and the shared resilience of a species finally equipped with the full suite of its uniquely human cognitive abilities. As we gently drift away from these ancient shores, let the echoes of that long journey softly fade. You've walked with our ancestors, felt the weight of their struggles, and witnessed the quiet dawning of their extraordinary minds. The vastness of those 250,000 years, the slow, agonizing climb from basic survival to the explosion of meaning reminds you of the immense resilience woven into the very fabric of humanity. You've seen the fragility of knowledge, the relentless fury of nature, and the profound power of connection of shared story of a single bead carrying a world of meaning. Now, as the last images of painted caves and ancient fires flicker, allow your mind to return to the quiet comfort of your own space. Feel the warmth of your blanket, the softness of your pillow, the gentle rhythm of your own breath. The battles for survival, the grand migrations, the first tentative whispers of art and music. They belong to the distant past, their echoes now soft and comforting. Contrast their arduous, unpredictable lives with the gentle ease of your present moment, a luxury forged by the very journey we've traced tonight. Let the stories of struggle and triumph blend into the serene hum of your surroundings. The human spirit, resilient and ever-evolving, continues its journey, but for now your part in this narrative is to rest. There's no need to remember every detail, only to feel the gentle peace of connection to a past that shaped everything you are. The journey of Homo sapiens is a lullaby, a testament to the enduring human spirit. Close your eyes, let the soft history guide you, and drift into a peaceful, well-deserved sleep. Sweet dreams,